Because of the influence of David Russell and John Williams, most of today's concert artists play either a Matthias Dahmen or a Greg Smallman guitar. You're original in that you play a Gernot Wagner guitar. What brought you to the Wagner guitar?
Oh, wow. Well, let's see. We're going back probably 15 years or so. Maybe even 20 when I first heard or came across a Dahmen or a Wagner. Someone would have one, the presenter, they were really hot. They would start getting really hot around 15, 20 years ago. So I would play somewhere and someone would have one. And I'm like, wow, these are really loud. Okay, that was, of course, that's the initial impression. And by that point, I was already starting to play a lot of chamber music. And I never felt like I had any problem projecting with whatever I was playing. At the time, I was playing
Paul Fisher.
Yes, the Paul Fisher, yeah, which were great instruments and a lot of clarity. And I really like those, especially for solo recital playing, particularly anything with a lot of polyphony, like Bach or something like that. But then these things presented a kind of a new option for me, and I liked them, but I found the guitars they were using only cedar at the time, and I don't know if this had anything to do with it, but it just seemed that the guitars lacked a certain kind of sparkle side. And so I think around that time I said to, like, I'm in the Cleveland area because I started teaching at Cleveland Institute of Music like right after my bachelor's degree, and they so there's a dealer in the area named Armin Kelly of Guitars International. So I was talking with him and I said, like, any of these guys like build with spruce, because spruce was kind of my preferred wood of the two. It just seemed, for me, it was like in most cases it had more color possibilities, like you could kind of ask it to do things character wise with your angle of your nail attack and this kind of thing, and it would it seemed like those kind of guitars would respond more. So one day I guess Gernot experimented with that, kind of like so that's what this is like. This is the spruce on top, and then there's the other top or soundboard underneath is cedar. And and it was kind of like that thing where you play a few notes on it, I'm like, that's it. That's exactly, it was almost like a sound or a kind of quality that I had in my mind, but I hadn't really come across a guitar in the double top style of building where someone had made that. And then there it was, like it was sort of presented to me, and I bought that guitar, that first one, in 2007. So now we're going back about 14 years now. And then this is the second one, and I bought this in 2013.
Wow. Well, let's talk about strings. For many years, you were playing the Gali Genius Titanium strings. What strings are you currently playing on now?
Well, I've gone back to Augustine. I was using Augustine a lot in the 90s and early 2000s. And so I contacted them to see if they could use a guitar player or something like that. If they did endorsements, I used the purple, this kind of purpley label, and the Regals, the same treble string that I liked, before in the 90s. The Gali thing I was doing because I love those titaniums. I thought the titanium Galis were really, I still do. I think it's a wonderful string, but I don't really see them I don't see them that much in the marketplace and that.
So you don't mix tensions on basses and trebles like I'm not sure if you I spoke to Frederick Hand I don't know, about a year ago, and we were talking about Julian Bream, because Julian Bream is like one of my favorite guitar players, and he would put during the time when Frederick Hand was studying with Julian, the basses were Savarez, the third string was Augustine, and
Yeah.
then like first and second string were a French brand called Concertiste that's no longer in business. So do you mix tensions and between the basses and the trebles? Do you change the third string? Anything special or just straight out of the box?
Yeah, that's so. I mean, not for a long time. I mean, there was a time. This is gonna sound might sort of not sound great to some of your viewers, but I haven't had a whole lot of time the last 20 something years. I mean, in the sense to kind of monkey with. There was a time like in the mid 90s where I did do that. I was using. I had I was using. I don't even really remember what it was. I think I had a top string. The top two strings was like, maybe the top string was like an Augustine Regal. The middle two were Savarez Alliance at the time. This is going way back. This is like 96, 97. And
was this on your Mexican guitar?
Probably, yeah, probably that one, the Vasquez Rubio. Yeah.
Yes, the Vasquez Rubio.
Yeah. So the Corum, the Savarez Corum, and this kind of thing, and those were great. Those were new at the time, and those Corum basses were wonderful because they had a sparkle to them, but they had a nice sort of fat core to the sound, but there was also that little sparkle element, that high frequency element, and they felt sort of like lower tension too, which was nice. It all depends on the internal string tension of the guitar you're playing as well. Like the actual feel of it, I think, is something that became more important to me as I kind of moved on as a professional, and I was playing more with more classical musicians, like string players and wind players and singers and this kind of thing. And I think it's good to sort of be obsessive about each string on the guitar. I don't know, I can't speak for anybody, including Bream, who's like was a major influence on me, maybe the most influential on me. So I can't speak for Bream or anyone, but I think if it's healthy, I think, to be more obsessive about like each string and that kind of thing. If you're playing like a solo program, or maybe two, if you're carrying like that amount of repertoire per season, and then you maybe play occasional concerto or something. If you're playing like 8 or 9 hours of different music a year, and every weekend you're doing something else, it just sort of became not really that important in the big picture, if that makes sense. I'm obviously insecure about the fact that I just slap on a pack of strings and I do the next thing. Like I'm in Salt Lake City right now. I played a solo recital Saturday night, and now today's Monday, and I'm going to drive to Moab for a festival where I play on 4 different concerts, and all 4 of those concerts have like different repertoire with different musicians. So if you can kind of imagine that decreases this kind of attention to like, I have to have everything in its right place, if that makes sense, Miguel.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So by the way, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it worked out for me. I didn't plan anything. I just sort of like, that's the way I wanted to play with other musicians, So.
Have you read On the Road with Julian Bream?
Love that book. Yeah, I read that when I was a kid. My teacher, my teacher Jeremy Sparks in Buffalo gave that book to me when I was like 14 or 15. I love that book. I actually I want to sort of find my copy of it. It's probably in storage somewhere. Or in the
wow. You're
Yeah.
lucky you have one. I had to get it through interlibrary loan, and then I made photocopies of certain pages that I wanted to like use for reference. And then it's crazy how he had the micrometer, and he was like measuring string by string to make sure that that it was like the same that it had the same what is the word, the same roundness. The thickness was consistent between the entire string from end to end.
Oh, the diameter.
The diameter, yes sir, yes, the diameter.
Oh, that's kind of funny. I probably, in my 14, 15-year-old brain, I might have glossed over that. That might have made my eyes glaze over. I don't know. Like, it's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that Bream was actually that kind of obsessive about it. I find that kind of thing a bit obsessive, actually.
Oh yeah, he was very obsessive.
Like, for me, it's kind of not about, like, I mean, that's kind of the thing I've been talking about for 20 years, like, in interviews. It's like, it's not really about, like, for me, it's kind of the focus. My focus is almost entirely, if not entirely, on the composition and the music, and actually trying to help a listener, like, help illuminate what is happening in the music to that. I'm not saying that nobody else is trying to do that. I'm sure everybody's trying to do that. But, like, all the other stuff, like the minutia, like, I think it's kind of well known in our little, our community of classical guitarists that I have, like, 2 guitars. Like, I don't collect guitars. I don't particularly have any kind of interest or sort of fetish in guitars. I mean, it's really kind of like, the guitar is really just kind of a vehicle or a block of wood in a way. Maybe it's not that crude a description, but, like, for like what I'm sort of trying to do with the music, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm surprised to hear that Bream was actually, because Bream seems sort of like kind of not loosey goosey, but kind of more, just kind of, because he will. What I took from the book is that everything's kind of like, and later on in the video documentary, that it all just kind of it all goes by in a rush, and that you're sort of flying by the seat of your pants. That's kind of a famous Bream saying. You're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, which later on, like after the 90s, I could really relate to that. I was like, oh, indeed, you're just kind of going from thing to thing. And then when you get these rare moments of reflection, like in, I don't know, like early or mid-May, when the semesters are done, and and then you get this kind of, you're at home for like maybe like 2 weeks, and then you sort of reflect and you're like, wow, what just happened this last year? That was kind of like every season for me the last 20 years. It was, it's just so much music to learn and record and play on and do things on radio live, and I mean, just all that stuff. It's a lot.
Wow. Well, yeah, he was obsessive, and like he would go to the concert hall, like the morning of, and would clap to hear the acoustics. Like, he wouldn't even take the guitar; he would just clap to hear the echo, the reverb of the hall, so that he could know whether he'd have to play slower or faster, depending on the reverb.
Yeah, that's a pretty quick check. That's always a pretty quick check that anyone that you do. Yeah, you just kind of go like this, and you can kind of get a sense right away. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, in a few seconds, like, okay, the allegros or whatever maybe might go a little slower. So maybe I'll play the Presto 1001 at like 65 rather than try to do then 70 or something like that. You know what I mean? Or whatever it is. You just sort of, and I think it's actually better in concert anyway, even in a dry space, to play a little slower on the faster things so that people can hear everything. Most people can't, most people can't really hear as fast as you and I and the other classical guitarists in the audience that know those pieces really well. They can't really hear that fast, It's kind of good to just take it back a smidge, so they can kind of hear the information that's there. So yeah.